What if the most sophisticated ghosting operation in the modern world has nothing to do with ignoring texts or leaving people on read? What if the ultimate ghost is the one you perform on yourself? A daily, silent disappearing act where you vanish from your own life, leaving behind only a hollowed-out avatar to go through the motions. Within the next minutes, we are going to dissect a paradox that defines modern loneliness. The person who is physically present but psychologically absent, who ghosts every potential for connection not out of malice, but out of a deep, terrifying preservation instinct. This is not about social skills. This is about the psychological machinery of self-erasure. Let's begin with a story about a woman named Chloe. To her 1,000 Instagram followers, Chloe is a curator of a beautiful, interesting life. Aesthetic coffee shops, thoughtful quotes, sunsets. She gets DMs. People ask her out. But Chloe lives in a state of perpetual, quiet vanishing. She will engage in a promising conversation, feel a flicker of genuine connection, and then, as if a switch flips, she becomes a ghost in the machine. She stops replying. She cancels plans last minute with flawless, polite excuses. She makes her online self beautifully present and her real self profoundly absent. Her friends call her flaky. Her dates think she's playing games. But the truth, the one that hums in her veins at 3 a.m., is far darker. Chloe doesn't feel real in those moments of potential connection. The closer someone gets to seeing the person behind the curated posts, the more she feels like a fraud about to be exposed. So she performs a preemptive strike. She ghosts them. But in ghosting them, she is also inevitably ghosting the part of herself that dared to want, to be seen, to be known. She abandons her own need in the womb of its conception. This is the core of the self-ghoster. They are not avoiding other people. They are executing a strategic retreat from their own vulnerability, leaving a shell to manage the fallout. To understand this, we must shatter the simplistic idea that ghosting is just rudeness or fear of commitment. On the surface, it looks like an action directed outward. But psychologically, it is a profound action directed inward. It is the external symptom of an internal fracture known as structural disassociation. This isn't the Hollywood version of multiple personalities. In its most common form, often stemming from developmental trauma or chronic childhood emotional neglect, the psyche splits to survive. One part, the apparently normal part, ANP, handles daily functioning, goes to work, pays bills, makes polite chatter. The other part, the emotional part, EP, holds the raw, unmet needs, the shame, the terror of abandonment, the unbearable vulnerability. For the self-ghoster, Chloe's curated Instagram persona is the ANP. The scared, wanting child within her that fears exposure is the EP. When a real connection threatens to bridge the gap between these two parts, to force the ANP to acknowledge the screaming needs of the EP, the entire system goes into lockdown. The psychological defense? Sever the connection. Ghost. It is not a person they are rejecting. They are rejecting the portal through which their own disowned emotional self might come flooding out and drown them. The ghosting is a containment protocol. This brings us to a brutal psychological mechanism, the repetition compulsion, coined by Freud but powerfully validated by modern trauma theory. This is the unconscious drive to repeat old painful patterns in a futile attempt to master them. For the child who experienced inconsistent care, where love was interspersed with neglect, where attention was followed by abandonment, the blueprint for relationship is chaos. Their nervous system learns that connection is inherently unstable and perilous. As an adult, the self-ghoster becomes the architect of that instability. They unconsciously recreate the original trauma by orchestrating the abandonment themselves. They initiate connection, the hope, foster it, the engagement, and then sever it, the abandonment. By being the one who ghosts, they play both roles, the abandoner and the abandoned. They gain a perverse sense of control and mastery over the original powerlessness. "I will leave you before you can leave me," is the surface logic. But the deeper, unconscious script is, "I will prove once again that I am unlovable and that all connection ends in loss. See, I made it happen. I am in control of my own annihilation." It is a self-fulfilling prophecy of loneliness, performed with the precision of a tragic play.
Now, let's get into the neurobiology, because this compulsion is etched into the very wiring of the brain. Research into the default mode network, DMN, a cluster of brain regions active when we are at rest and not focused on the outside world, reveals something fascinating. In people with high levels of attachment anxiety and a history of relational trauma, the DMN doesn't just idle, it becomes a theater of catastrophic social simulation. When a self-ghoster like Chloe gets a text inviting her out, her DMN doesn't envision a pleasant evening. It bombards her with hyper-vivid simulations of every possible failure. She'll say something stupid, they'll see her as boring, she'll feel trapped, they'll eventually reject her. This isn't anxiety, this is a neurological fact. Her brain is experiencing the future rejection as a present-tense reality. The amygdala, the threat detector, lights up as if the social danger is already happening. The ghosting, then, is not a choice made from a place of calm assessment. It is a flight response triggered by a brain that has already lived the painful outcome 100 times in the span of a minute. The ghosting is a literal escape from a perceived immediate threat generated by her own neural circuitry. She is fleeing a phantom of her own mind's creation, but the relief of escape is devastatingly real, reinforcing the behavior every single time. Consider a more extreme story, a case study that illuminates this inner prison. A man named Leo was known in his circles as the Houdini of friendship. He could be the life of the party for months, the guy everyone counted on. Then, without a word, he'd vanish, delete social media, change his number, move apartments. He did this cyclically, every 2 to 3 years. In therapy, he uncovered the root. As a child, his family had moved constantly for his father's job. Every time he began to feel rooted, to make a friend he loved, the rug was pulled out. He learned that depth of attachment was synonymous with catastrophic loss. As an adult, Leo's unconscious mind had taken over the role of his father. It would monitor his attachment levels like a gauge. When his friendships reached a certain depth of intimacy, his psyche would hit the emergency eject button. His elaborate disappearing acts were not him rejecting his friends. They were a reenactment of his childhood trauma, orchestrated by him to master the old pain. He was ghosting the world to preempt the ghosting he felt was his inevitable destiny. He was, in the most tragic sense, loyal to his past, betraying his present and future to remain faithful to a story written decades ago. This behavior is also the hallmark of what psychologists call a dismissive avoidant attachment style. This isn't just being independent, it's a deeply ingrained belief system that says, no one can meet my needs, I must rely only on myself. Dependency is weakness, and vulnerability is danger. The self-ghoster with this style builds a fortress of self-sufficiency. They may engage socially, but they do so from behind a one-way mirror. They observe, they perform, but they do not truly allow reciprocity. The moment someone tries to give to them, to care for them in a way that requires them to receive, the fortress walls slam down. To receive love, care, or even simple persistence is to acknowledge a need, and to acknowledge a need is to shatter the foundational myth of their own completeness. So they ghost. They reject the gift to preserve the identity of the giverless, needless self. It is a tragic irony. Their strength, their apparent lack of need, is the very wound that ensures their loneliness. They have ghosted their own humanity, trading it for a sterile, safe statue.
But here is where we find the first, crucial thread of light in this dark labyrinth. The very pain of this cycle, the exhaustion, the loneliness, the shame that follows another act of vanishing, is not a sign of failure. It is the signal. It is the cry of the ghosted self, the emotional part that holds your capacity for real connection, screaming from the dungeon you put it in. The numbness you feel, the meh that justifies another cancellation, is not your true self. It is the anesthetic administered by the apparently normal part to keep the operation running smoothly. Your indifference is a lie your psyche tells you to maintain control. The fact that you feel hollow after ghosting, that you sometimes look at your silent phone with a pang of regret rather than relief, is the truth breaking through. That pang is the key. It is the part of you that still wants, that still believes in connection, that has not fully been erased. It is the part you have been ghosting. And its persistent, quiet voice is your only way out. We have mapped the prison. We have seen how self-ghosting is a trauma response, a neurological hijacking, repetition compulsion that turns you into both the prisoner and the warden of your own loneliness. You are not a flaky person. You are a traumatized psyche executing a survival protocol that has outlived its purpose. But understanding the lock is not the same as picking it. The real terrifying question is, how do you stop running from a phantom that lives inside you? How do you turn and face the very need you've spent a lifetime assassinating? Now, we will move from diagnosis to the dangerous art of self-haunting. We will explore how to deliberately invite the ghosted parts of yourself back to the table, not with fluffy self-love, but with the ruthless, surgical compassion of a psychologist performing an exorcism on their own soul. The goal is not to become someone who never ghosts. It is to become someone so present to yourself that the very need to disappear evaporates. The path out of the void begins with a single, counterintuitive command: to haunt the one house you've always been too afraid to live in, your own.
The real work, the dark, perilous, and ultimately sovereign work, begins now. This is the art of self-haunting. It is the deliberate, courageous decision to stop running from the ghosted parts of yourself and instead to turn and invite them to walk with you. This is not about forcing friendships or answering every text. It is about ending the civil war within so that your external world is no longer a battlefield. Let's return to Chloe, the curator of the beautiful, absent life. Her awakening did not come from a successful date or a new friend. It came in the sterile silence following yet another ghosting. She had met someone who genuinely intrigued her, and as usual, after 3 good dates, the familiar panic set in. She sent the polite, "I'm just so busy right now" text and disappeared. But this time, instead of the numb relief she expected, she was sucker-punched by a grief so sharp it took her breath away. It was in that ache that she realized her ghosting wasn't a move of power. It was a scream of helplessness. She was a child locking herself in a closet and calling it a fortress. Her first act of rebellion was microscopic. She didn't reach out to the person she'd ghosted. Instead, she opened the notes app on her phone. She wrote the date, and then she wrote, as if speaking to that scared part inside, "I see you are terrified. I feel the urge to run. It's okay. We can just sit here with this feeling." She didn't try to change it. She simply acknowledged it. For the first time, she wasn't ghosting the feeling. She was witnessing it.
In that moment, she performed a fundamental act of psychic reintegration. The apparently normal part, the curator, turned its attention toward the emotional part, the terrified child, and said, "I am here. You are not alone in here." This is the bedrock of stopping the cycle. You must become a safe container for your own abandonment fear before you can ever hope to be safe in the presence of another. This process is the direct neurological override of the default mode network's catastrophic simulations. Your brain has been practicing horror stories for decades. Your job is to feed it new data. This requires what we might call micro-commitments of presence. You are not going to force yourself into a deep, lifelong friendship overnight. That would be like throwing someone with a phobia of water into the ocean. Instead, you start by changing the internal narrative in the smallest possible social interactions. When you feel the first flutter of, "I should just cancel," you pause. You do not act. You simply observe the urge as a physiological event, a clench in the stomach, a tightening in the chest. You breathe into that sensation. You might still cancel, but you do so consciously, not compulsively. The goal is to widen the space between the trigger, the invitation, and the reaction, the ghosting. In that space, you build your sovereignty. The next experiment is even smaller. You send a text you've been putting off, even if it's just, "Thanks, had a good time too." You then sit with the uncomfortable, exposed feeling that follows without numbing it. You are teaching your amygdala that social engagement does not lead to death. You are gathering direct somatic evidence that contradicts a lifetime of fearful projections. Each time you do this, you are not just communicating with another person. You are sending a telegram to your own nervous system that reads, "We survived. We are intact." This internal work inevitably leads you to the core of the repetition compulsion, the original wound of unstable connection. To break the cycle, you must consciously reparent the moment of abandonment. Here is a dark psychological exercise. In a quiet, safe space, close your eyes. Recall not an adult ghosting, but the earliest memory you have of feeling emotionally abandoned, invisible, or too much. Perhaps it was a parent lost in work, a friend who turned away, a caregiver whose love felt conditional. Do not just remember it, feel it in your body. Then, in your mind's eye, have your adult self walk into that scene. See your child self and intervene. Your adult self places a hand on that child's shoulder. Your adult self looks at the neglecting figure and says calmly, "I will handle this." Then you turn to your child self and you say the words they needed to hear. "I am here. I will not leave you. Your feelings are not too much. You are not a burden." You may need to do this visualization 100 times. It will feel silly, then it will feel sad, then it will feel powerful. You are rewriting the implicit memory that drives the compulsion. You are giving your psyche a new ending to the old story. You are becoming the reliable witness and protector your emotional system never had. When the ghosting urge strikes now, it is not just a trigger, it is an echo of that old scene. And now you have an adult in the room to answer it.
Now let's apply this to the dismissive avoidant fortress. The wall you've built doesn't need to be demolished. It needs a gate. The gate is controlled vulnerability. For the person who ghosts, vulnerability has always felt like a free fall into an abyss. So you practice it like a skill, with spotting lines and a safety mat. You do not confess your deepest secrets. You start by expressing a minor preference. I'd rather see the action movie than the comedy. This is a tiny assertion of self. Notice the anxiety it provokes, the fear of being difficult. Sit with it. Next, you might practice receiving a small compliment without deflecting it. Just say, "Thank you," and feel the heat in your cheeks. Your job is to tolerate the discomfort of being seen even in these flickers. The ultimate practice is to state a need. This is the kryptonite of the self-ghoster. Start with something logistical and small. Can we start at 7 instead of 6:30? I need a bit more time. You are building the muscle that your childhood environment may have atrophied, the belief that your needs have a right to exist and can be met without catastrophic consequence. Each time you do this, and the world does not end, the fortress wall becomes less of a prison and more of a structure you can consciously choose to step out from. This brings us to the story of Leo, the Houdini of friendship who vanished every few years. His turnaround began when he recognized the 2-year cycle. He saw it not as a mystery, but as a timer on an internal bomb. His mission became to disarm it. He didn't try to stop himself from moving or changing his number. His first act was to tell one trusted friend about the pattern. He said, "I have this thing where I get the urge to disappear. I'm not doing it now, but I'm telling you so it's real." This was revolutionary. He was externalizing the compulsion, bringing it into the light of a relationship, making it harder to execute in secrecy. Then he created an anchor. He bought a small, ugly ceramic frog at a thrift store. He told himself, "As long as I have this frog, I am not allowed to ghost my entire life." The frog was a ridiculous, tangible symbol of continuity for his ANP to cling to. When the urge to flee would rise, he would hold the frog and say to the panicked EP inside, "We are staying. The frog stays, we stay." It was absurd, but it worked. It was a physical, conscious interruption of the unconscious script. Leo learned that he didn't need to stop the feeling. He needed to disobey its command. His power came not from suppressing the ghost, but from hearing its warning and choosing a different path. This journey of self-haunting culminates in a profound shift of identity. You move from being a ghost to being a haunt. A ghost is ephemeral, reactive, defined by absence and fear. A haunt is a presence. It is a force that occupies a space fully, knows every shadow and creaking floorboard, and cannot be expelled. To become a haunt of your own life is to achieve a state of radical self-possession. The loneliness you felt was the emptiness of the unoccupied self. When you finally move in, when you haunt every room of your own psyche, the bright living rooms of your talents and the dusty basements of your fears, the desperate need to flee from others dissipates. Connection is no longer a threat because you are no longer a fragile, hollow shell that could be shattered by a stray comment or rejected invitation. You are a substantial, complex, inhabited estate. People can visit, and you can choose to welcome them or not, but their presence or absence does not determine your fundamental occupancy. The path of the self-ghoster was never about other people. It was a long, lonely vigil at the grave of your own disowned needs. You were mourning a self you thought you had to kill to survive. The work we've outlined is the slow, brave archaeology of exhuming that self, cleaning off the dirt of old trauma and inviting it back to live. The joy that awaits is not the bubbly joy of constant social activity. It is the deep, quiet, unshakable joy of integrity. It is the joy of no longer being a stranger to yourself. It is the joy of receiving a text and feeling curiosity instead of dread, because the outcome no longer holds the power to define your worth. You realize that for years you've been ghosting a world you never truly showed up to in the first place. Now you are here. Your presence is your power. The haunting has begun, and the first life you are destined to inhabit fully, gloriously, and unghostably is your own.